The history of war between India and Pakistan dates back to 1947, the year both nations were carved out of British colonial rule. It began with partition, a traumatic and bloody separation that sowed the seeds of deep mistrust. Since then, 1947, 1965, 1971, and 1999, each of them intensifying nationalistic fervor and embedding hostility deep into the DNA of their political identities. The primary battleground, Kashmir, a paradise turned powder keg, the line of control, drawn like a scar across the Himalayan valley, became more than just a territorial dispute. It became a symbol of pain, pride, and power. Donald Trump entered this narrative not as a historian, nor as a traditional diplomat, but as a disruptor, with his America First foreign policy, brash style, and unapologetically bold rhetoric. Trump didn't approach the India-Pakistan conflict with the usual caution typical of previous administrations. Instead, he turned heads with a single statement. He claimed that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi had asked him to mediate in Kashmir. It was a statement that set off alarms in New Delhi and raised eyebrows in Islamabad. For decades, India had maintained that Kashmir was a bilateral issue, not one to be mediated by outside powers. Trump's claim was not just surprising, it was diplomatically explosive. And that was Trump in a nutshell, willing to walk into the hornet's nest of international diplomacy with a grin and a deal in mind. To understand Donald Trump's position in the India-Pakistan conflict, you must look beyond his words and into the weight of American influence in South Asia. The United States has long been a strategic player in the region, balancing its interests between the world's largest democracy and a key non-NATO ally in Pakistan. Each nation offers unique leverage. India, with its massive economy and growing global clout, and Pakistan, a critical player in the war on terror, especially in the context of Afghanistan. Trump's administration prioritized relationships based on trade deals, counterterrorism cooperation, and strategic alliances rather than long-standing traditions or multilateral coalitions. His personal diplomacy with Modi was marked by large public events like Howdy Modi in Houston and Namaste Trump in Ahmedabad, showcasing unprecedented levels of camaraderie between the two leaders. They bonded over populist rhetoric, economic nationalism, and a mutual desire to reshape their nation's global images. Yet Trump also maintained a complicated relationship with Pakistan. He began his presidency with tough words, accusing Pakistan of harboring terrorists and cutting off military aid in 2018. But in typical Trump fashion, he shifted gears, inviting Prime Minister Imran Khan to the White House and expressing hopes of a strong relationship. This balancing act, friendly gestures followed by stern warnings, was emblematic of Trump's foreign policy playbook. But in a region prone to escalations that can lead to war, words carry weight and actions must be calculated. In February 2019, the Pulwama terror attack in Kashmir killed 40 Indian paramilitary personnel, triggering massive outrage across India. The militant group Jaish-e-Mohammed, based in Pakistan, claimed responsibility. In response, India conducted airstrikes in Balakot, across the border in Pakistani territory, a bold and risky move that drew the world's attention. The two nuclear-armed neighbors stood on the edge of full-scale war. It was during this time that global leaders, including Donald Trump, played a quiet yet critical role. While he refrained from detailed public commentary, behind the scenes, the U.S. administration urged restraint. Trump acknowledged that tensions were high and said, "We're talking, and a lot of people are talking. We've been in the middle trying to help them both out." This was Trump's diplomacy in action, brash on the surface, but behind closed doors, a pragmatic desire to avoid a regional war that could threaten global stability. It's important to recognize the historical weight of American involvement in Indo-Pak tensions. Since the Cold War, the U.S. has walked a fine line, sometimes leaning toward Pakistan during the Soviet-Afghan War, and later pivoting toward India in the post-9/11 era as New Delhi emerged as an economic powerhouse. Under Trump, this pivot became even more pronounced. His administration signed key defense agreements with India, designated it a major defense partner, and supported India's role in the Indo-Pacific strategy to counter China's growing influence. Yet Pakistan could not be ignored. Its geographic position, influence over the Taliban, and role in regional security remained essential. Trump's pursuit of a peace deal in Afghanistan brought Pakistan back into the fold. Imran Khan became a critical intermediary between the U.S. and Taliban forces, earning praise from Trump in return. "I trust Pakistan to help us out," he said, in a moment that many in India watched with concern. This dual engagement created a complex triangle, Trump walking a tightrope between two nations historically at odds, each capable of triggering global consequences through their rivalry. The word war hangs heavy when talking about India and Pakistan. Unlike most international rivalries, this one is framed by the ever-present risk of nuclear escalation. Both nations possess significant nuclear arsenals. One miscalculation, one act of aggression, one response too far, and the region could spiral into unimaginable destruction. Donald Trump knew this. His administration never made overt moves to favor one side militarily, but his words often leaned toward diplomacy that seemed more performative than substantive. Trump's belief in personal relationships as tools of diplomacy meant that peace was often framed as a matter of personal charisma rather than detailed policy. He believed his rapport with Imran Khan and Narendra Modi could translate into geopolitical breakthroughs. But the reality on the ground, the entrenched nationalism, the bitter history, and the unresolved status of Kashmir made such hopes unrealistic. Still, Trump achieved something unique. He forced the world to talk about the India-Pakistan conflict from a new angle by publicly inserting himself into the Kashmir conversation. Even controversially, he reminded global audiences that unresolved conflicts still matter, that peace cannot be taken for granted, that even a U.S. president with no deep foreign policy experience could place himself in the heart of a nuclear flashpoint and demand attention. In many ways, Trump's approach to India and Pakistan was emblematic of his presidency: unpredictable, disruptive, attention-grabbing, and deeply personal. He did not solve the Kashmir conflict, he did not mediate a lasting peace, but he did at various points attempt to leverage America's position as a global superpower to keep tensions from boiling over. Fast forward to 2024, with Donald Trump winning a second, non-consecutive term. The world watches once again as he takes the reins of power, now older, more experienced, and perhaps more seasoned in international affairs. Will Trump re-engage with South Asia as tensions simmer and the world grows more complex? Will he attempt again to position himself as a broker of peace, or will his focus shift elsewhere? One thing is certain: India and Pakistan remain locked in a rivalry shaped by history, blood, and borders. War is not just a possibility, it's a lurking threat that demands constant attention. And any American president, Trump included, must tread carefully in a region where a single strike can trigger global shockwaves. Donald Trump, love him or loathe him, left his mark on the India-Pakistan dynamic, not through treaties or resolutions, but by reminding the world that even the most dangerous rivalries need dialogue, that even the most entrenched hostilities require attention. His legacy in this conflict is not one of peace, but of provocation that forced both nations to reckon with the cost of war. In the end, history will judge Donald Trump not by what he claimed he could do, but by what his words and presence triggered a region desperate for stability, yet constantly dancing on the edge of the abyss. India and Pakistan remain two sovereign nations bound by geography and scarred by war. And Donald Trump remains the outsider who, in true Trump fashion, entered the arena, spoke boldly, disrupted expectations, and walked away with the world still watching.